17% interest rate on a car loan means you're going to pay $18,000 in interest over the next 4 years. And if you had a 5-year loan, you'd pay $23,000 in interest. This car was one of the worst financial decisions I have ever made. It's because I failed to follow a few simple car buying rules. Hi, I'm Imran, the finance engineer. I used to engineer stuff for you, but now I'm helping you engineer your finances. You're not gonna make the same mistake I did, because in this video, I'm gonna walk you through the essential rules around buying a car you can truly afford. So 5 years ago, I bought a $60,000 car, even though I was only making $80,000. I want you to keep these numbers in mind as we go through the video, and towards the end, I'll explain why buying that car caused me to miss out on a substantial amount of money. I feel like we should film part of this video in the car, right? Let's do it. All right, we are in that, we're in this car that we talked about earlier. First rule, if you can, buy your car in cash. You want me to pay cash for an entire car? Correct. That's the most unrealistic advice I have ever heard. And for that reason, I'm out. How do I open this damn door? Let me explain why this is a great idea, especially in this economy. When you borrow money to buy a car, that money isn't actually free. You have to pay the lender interest throughout the term of the loan. Here's an example. Let's say you borrow some money to buy a $60,000 car. You put $12,000 as a down payment, 4-year loan, and an average interest rate of 7%. By the time you pay off your car, you'll end up paying over $7,000 in interest, which means that $60,000 car actually costed you $67,000 if we ignore all the hidden costs, which we'll talk about later. Now here's the thing, that 7% interest rate I talked about earlier is if you have a good credit score. Someone came into one of my live streams about a month ago and said they were paying a 17% interest rate on their car loan. This was mainly because they had a poor credit score. A 17% interest rate on a car loan means you're going to pay $18,000 in interest over the next 4 years. And if you had a 5-year loan, you'd pay $23,000 in interest. Okay, let's assume I can buy cash. What do we spend? Try and aim for 20 to 30% of your annual gross income. So if you make $100,000 per year, for example, that would be $20,000 to $30,000. If I'm making 6 figures, there's no way I'm driving around a $20,000 car. Well, do you want to look rich or be rich? Yeah, good point. This next rule can save you even more money. Have you ever heard people say that as soon as you drive a new car off the lot, it loses 10% of its value? It's surprisingly true. A new car loses between 9 and 11% of its value as soon as you drive it out of the dealership. Then wouldn't it make more sense to buy it after someone drives it off the lot? Exactly right. Let someone else pay for that initial depreciation of that car. But don't used cars have more problems? There's actually quite a bit of data that supports that new cars aren't always as reliable. According to a reliability survey conducted by Consumer Reports, the Tesla Model X was the least reliable car in its first 2 years. People complain about faulty air conditioning and those fancy Falcon doors. There are similar reports for the first Jaguar F-Pace SUV and the 2017 Subaru Impreza. If you're still concerned about buying used, consider a certified pre-owned. They typically come with some kind of warranty. Besides that, you can also have the car inspected by a mechanic before you make the purchase. One final benefit to buying used is cheaper insurance. One main factor that determines your insurance premium is the value of the car. Since a used car is usually cheaper than a new one, you could see that price reflected on the insurance as well. I've been waiting for this car to leave for like 5 minutes. Okay, makes sense, but what if buying cash is completely out of the question? Here's a simple rule you can follow to make sure you can finance a car you can truly afford. 3 simple numbers: 20, 4, and 10. This means you're making a 20% down payment, more is better. The term of the loan is 4 years at most, less is better. And no more than 10% of your monthly income going towards transportation costs, less is better. Let's see if that works for someone making $80,000 per year who wants to buy a $60,000 car. A 20% down payment would be $12,000. For the length of the loan, we'll roll with 4 years or 48 months. With an average interest rate of 7%, your monthly payment would be $1,150. An $80,000 salary would be $6,600 per month if we round down, and 10% of that is $660. So based on this rule, they can't even afford a $30,000 car, which would be about $570 per month. Wait, but $570 is less than 10% of this person's monthly income. Remember, it's 10% or less going to transportation costs, which is more than just the car payment. We have to include those hidden costs you mentioned earlier, like insurance, fuel, and maintenance. Yep, you nailed it. Man, this rule is extremely conservative. I know I called it a rule earlier, but let's be honest, especially these days, it's more of a guideline. So just try to get as close to these numbers as possible. Hey, I just did the math and my car payment would be significantly less if I leased a car instead. Don't lease. Okay, I guess the leasing section of the video is done. Unless you have a unique situation, leasing is almost always, financially speaking, a bad idea. But leave a comment below. Do you want to see a video comparing leasing versus financing a car? Okay, quick recap. Buy cash, buy used, and if we can't buy cash, use the 24/10 guideline. Yep. Okay, cool. Now let's assume I do have the money to buy in cash. Wouldn't it be smarter to finance the car using 24/10 and invest the rest of the cash? You're talking about opportunity cost. Explain. Okay, let's say person A buys that $60,000 car in cash, but person B finances the same car using 24/10. Who will save the most money? Person A, because person B is paying interest on the loan. Correct. Now what if person B had $60,000, still chose to finance the car with 20% down, but also invests the remaining $48,000? Invest in what? Let's say the overall stock market, which historically has returned around 10% per year on average. After subtracting the $7,000 in interest they paid on the loan, they would make $15,000 in profit. Now that calculation is flawed because that 10% return you're talking about is over a long period of time. We're talking decades. You are absolutely right. Let's see how much money they'd roughly make after 40 years. They would make approximately $2 million if they invested that money instead. This is an example of opportunity cost. While paying cash for a car is generally a good idea, you could argue that investing the money elsewhere could be a better idea. All right, it's getting dark. Let's go back inside so I can show you some final calculations. These ones are gonna blow your damn mind. If I had followed just one of these rules, I could have made a substantial amount of money. Let me quickly walk you through a few scenarios, and hopefully after that, you'll see the way. What if I spent $20,000 on a car instead of $60 using 24/10? That would be a $4,000 down payment, 3% interest rate, which is what the rate was when I bought the car. Rest in peace, interest rates. My payment would be about $350 per month. And to keep things simple, let's just leave out fuel and insurance costs for now. If we compare that to the $60,000 car I bought, that's a $16,000 difference in the down payment alone. I put $20,000 down, and a $250 difference in the monthly payment. Now here's where it gets good. If 4 years ago I invested that $16,000 into the overall stock market and an additional $250 per month until now, I'd have approximately $46,000. Let's keep this pain train going. What if we invested $46,000 and not a penny more for 30 years? Assuming the stock market continues to return about 10% per year on average, we could end up with about $800,000. Okay, last example, I promise this one's gonna blow your mind. What if I kept my older paid off car, which was running fine, and instead I invested $12,000 up front and $610 per month for the next 30 years? Not bad. How about 40 years? Hopefully by now, a few things have happened to you. First, you subscribed. Second, you're convinced that buying a car you can't afford is not worth it. Delaying gratification and limiting lifestyle creep are awesome ways to build significant wealth. Thanks for watching.